Okay? Matthew 13, verse 18. Hear you therefore the parable of the sower. When anyone hears the word of the kingdom and understands it not, then comes the wicked one and catches away that which was sown in his heart. This is he which receives seed by the wayside. But he that received the seed into stony places, the same is he that hears the word, and with joy receives it. Yet has he not root in himself, but does for a while. For when tribulation or persecution arises because of the word, by and by he is offended. He also that receives seed among the thorns is he that hears the word, and the cares of this world and the deceitfulness of riches and choke the word, and he becomes unfruitful. But he that received seed into the good ground is he that hears the word and understands it, which also bears fruit, and brings forth some 100-fold, and some 60, and some 30. This title is, Are You Listening? The story of a little excited boy was telling his dad about something that had happened to him that day, and his dad said, "Slow down, you're talking too fast." And the boy shot back to him, "Oh no, Dad, I'm not talking too fast, you're just listening too slow." So are you listening? It's been said that we think 4 or 5 times faster than we talk. This means that if a speaker talks at 120 words a minute, the audience thinks at about 500 words a minute. I suppose maybe I need to talk faster. Or else you need to listen slower. Otherwise, I'll put you to sleep. In James chapter 1, verse 19, my dear brothers, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. The story is told that when Napoleon was making plans to invade England, he was told an American wanted to see him. Napoleon said, I can give him 2 minutes. But 2 minutes was not enough to understand a revolutionary idea of a ship propelled by steam. Had Napoleon listened longer to Robert Fulton, the history of the world might have been altered. Again, are you listening? It pays to listen to the right person at the right time for the right length of time. After Yeshua was transfigured on the mountain, Yahweh said in Matthew 17, verse 5, while he yet spoke, behold, a bright cloud overshadowed them. And behold, a voice out of the cloud which said, this is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Hear you him. An 80-year-old grandfather went to his daughter's house for dinner. And when the meal was over, he announced that he was going to take a walk through the neighborhood. I'll be back in 20 minutes, he said. But 2 hours had passed before he finally returned. Sorry I'm late, but I stopped to talk to an old friend, and he just wouldn't stop listening. Are you listening? Sometimes it pays to listen to a very long time, especially when it comes to listening to Yahweh and His Word. We should never stop listening to the Word of Yahweh. It pays big dividends to listen to Yahweh and Yeshua and learn from Him, whether through a sermon or through your own personal reading of Yahweh's Word. In our text about the parable of the sower, Yeshua speaks of 4 different kinds of hearers or listeners. The hearted listener, the shallow-hearted listener, the clutter-hearted listener, the good-hearted listener. So we have, first off, the hard-hearted listener. Matthew 13:19, and if anyone hears the word of the kingdom and understands it not, then comes the wicked one and catches away that which was sown in his heart. This is he which receives seed by the wayside. A hard-hearted listener is hardened to the gospel because they can't seem to understand it or grasp it. Satan snatches any little bit that has sown in that person's heart before it can start to grow and bear fruit. At one point during a game, a baseball coach said to one of his young players, "Do you understand what cooperation is? What a team is?" The little boy nodded yes. "Do you understand that what matters is whether we win together as a team?" The little boy nodded yes. So the coach continued, "When a strike is called or you're out at first, do you argue or cuss or attack this empire? Do you understand all that?" Again, the little boy nodded. "Good," said the coach. "Now go over there and explain it to your mother. There are some things that some people just don't seem to understand in life." However, understanding all about baseball is not nearly as important as understanding the basics or the essentials of the gospel. 3 boys talking about their fathers. One of them said, "My father's a great professor." When he's talking about a subject, only 10 people in the world can understand him. The second boy said, "My father is a great brain surgeon, and when he is talking about his surgery, only 5 people in the world can understand what he is saying." And the third boy said, "My father is a preacher, and when he is preaching, nobody can understand what he is saying." And it seems that way. Colossians 4 verse 3. "Withal, praying also for us, that Yahweh would open unto us a door of utterance, to speak the mysteries of Messiah, for which I am also in bonds, that I may make it manifest as I ought to speak." In order to keep Satan from stealing what has been sown in people, in their hearts and minds, we must make the message of Yeshua Messiah as clear as possible. Then you have the shallow-hearted listener. Matthew 13, verse 20. "But he that receives the seed into stony places, the same is he that hears the word, and right away with joy receives it. Yet has he not root in himself. For during a while, for when tribulation or persecution arises because of the word, by and by he is offended." The shallow-hearted listener doesn't have any staying power. They are quick to believe, receive, and rejoice, but they don't stay with the program or the person of Yeshua Messiah. There's a Hachiko is a Japanese dog who used to accompany his master to the railroad station each morning and then get back and greet him back in the evening at the station. One night in 1925, the man died and did not return, having died in another city. Although the little dog had met his master for only a few months previously, for over 10 years, the dog went to the station every night, trotting home again after waiting for an hour. The faithfulness of Hachiko impressed that nation so much that the government erected a statue of the dog on the spot where he had previously waited. You know, it's a shame that we humans are not as faithful or enduring as some dogs, but it's true. I've known a number of people who started a jogging or exercise program because it seemed so beneficial, but after only a short time, they or we quit. Why? The excitement wore off. The going got tough. We experienced sore muscles, leg aches, shin splints, and what people have done with the various sports, they have also done with jobs, and they have done with Yeshua and his congregation. We've seen a lot of people come and go. Why don't they stick with it? Is it their fault or ours? Part of the fault could be ours. It all depends on how much we help new converts, how much we love them and support them. That's it. That's one key to the survival of all believers. We must love them, and even in their failures, we must support them, encourage them, help them, and pray for them. 1 Thessalonians 5 verse 14. Now we exhort you, brethren, warn them that are unruly, comfort the feeble-minded, support the weak, be patient towards all men. Romans 14 verse 1. Him that is weak in the faith, receive you, but not to doubtful disputations. Romans 15 verse 1. We then that are strong ought to bear the infirmities of the weak, and not to please ourselves. Let every one of us please his neighbor for his good to edification. I've heard it said that believers are the only people who shoot their wounded. I wouldn't say that always holds true, but it does a part of the time. In other words, when someone fails or sins, what do? Do we shoot them, or do we try to save them? Do we criticize and condemn them, or do we try to help cure their problem? I really realize that we can't help some people because they don't want to be helped. I've seen those kinds of people in churches, and generally after a period of time, they will drop out. It seems like no one can help them but Elohim alone. Consequently, some will not remain faithful. When the going gets tough, they get going in the wrong direction. Whether they find life tough or the believer's life tough, they just drop out. Such is the shallow-hearted listener. And then we come across the clutter-hearted listener in Matthew 13, verse 22. He also that receives seed among the thorns is he that hears the word, and the cares of this world and the deceitfulness of riches choke the word, and he becomes unfruitful. The clutter-hearted listener has cluttered up his life with the things of this world. Some people are caught up in the world of entertainment, which keeps them from being captured by the Lord. Did you know that Americans gave over $2.9 billion with a B dollars to overseas missions? Sounds pretty good until you hear the rest of the story. Americans also gave over $8.4 billion to see movies, $13 billion or more to buy chocolate, over $23 billion to buy toys, over $23 billion to buy stuff for their pets, $24 billion for jewelry, $58 billion for soft drinks, $85 billion for lawn and garden care, and $354 billion to eat out in restaurants. Does this sound like Americans are interested in Yahweh and Yeshua? I'm not pointing fingers. I'm pointing the fingers at Americans. The vast majority of Americans are not interested in Yahweh. They are interested in anything and everything else. They have no spiritual priorities. The vast majority of people in America may talk a bit about Christianity, but they don't practice it. Ask the average person what they are interested in and see what they say. They don't talk about Yahweh and Yeshua. They talk about sports and movies and food and hobbies and cars, whatever. And this is a problem in affluent America. We have everything. We do everything or want to do everything, and consequently, Yahweh and Yeshua are left out of the picture of our lives. Americans' lives are cluttered with things, and we have no room for Yeshua Messiah. And then we have the good-hearted listener. Matthew 13, verse 23. But he that received seed into the good ground is he that hears the word and understands it, which also bears fruit, and bringeth forth some 100-fold, and some 60, and some 30. The good-hearted listener hears the word and understands it and bears fruit. It has been said that the gauge of a good sermon is when a person leaves the congregation and not saying what a good sermon, but they say, I will do something. That's a good-hearted listener. In James chapter 1, verse 22, but be you doers of the word and not hearers only, deceiving your own selves. Be you doers of the word and not hearers only. James 1, verse 23. For if any be a hearer of the word and not a doer, he is like unto a man beholding his natural face in a glass, and for he beholds himself and goes his way, and straightway forgets what manner of man he was. But whoso looks into the perfect law of liberty and continues therein, he being not a forgetful hearer, but a doer of the work, this man shall be blessed in his deeds. If you love me, keep my commandments. Don't just listen about it, do them. The good-hearted listener sees himself in the mirror of Yahweh's word and doesn't like what he sees. Consequently, he does something to change that image. He believes and obeys the word of Yahweh. He allows Yahweh's word to bear fruit in his life. The good-hearted listener listens, and he understands, and he bears fruit. Yeshua said in Revelation 3, verse 20, Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hears my voice and open the door, I will come in to him and will sup with him, and he with me. Are you listening? Yeshua's knocking on the door of your heart. He's knocking in many ways and by means of many people. Do you hear him? Are you listening? He's not saying, let's do lunch. He's saying, let's do life together. Are you listening? God bless you with ears to hear.